Hi there, my name is Kay Moon, and this is a video about the full moon in Taurus that happened on October 31st, 2020 at 10:49 a.m. if you happen to be on the eastern seaboard of the United States. This full moon, the Taurus full moon, has a very interesting energy to it. Um, I would say it's both at the same time catalytic, cathartic, provocative, and it's really supporting us to do some inner inner work, outer work. The best way to put it is that things are changing in a big way. And I think, when we look around in the collective, we can kind of see that. But there are kind of a few energies at play here that are bringing forward an energy of extremes. And the extremes include distortion, a lot of distortion in our thinking and our perception and our understanding of what's going on around us. So that's one extreme, being caught up in a lot of illusion. And then the other extreme is really kind of letting go of illusion in a way that's pretty bittersweet, almost a little bit heartbreaking. um, as Neptune squares the lunar nodes here during the time of this full moon. And the reason I bring that up first is because, that particular transit of Neptune squaring the nodes is something that's going to be going on through, I think, about the beginning or middle of 2021. And that energy is a container. And when we have a singular lunar event or shorter lasting transit that's happening inside of a much longer lasting transit, the longer lasting transit acts like a container for the shorter transit. And this particular Neptune square the lunar nodes, mutable lunar nodes at that, is really heralding and signaling that change is upon us, that this particular full moon in Taurus is the beginning of a bit of a season of rapid transformation, and that there are going to be kind of significant extremes to be experienced while the pendulum finds the middle. And so this full moon happening out here, we've got the full moon here at 8 degrees Taurus. We've got Uranus conjunct that full moon, heralding a lot of change as well. Uranus is the planet of kind of the divine intervention, the divine consort, divine insight, stroke of genius. But it's also revolution. It's also transformation and growth. And it is the kind of energy that brings lightning bolt catalytic change. For good or for ill, when we have a significant Uranian placement in transit, um, there's life before and then there is life after. And we cannot, once Uranus strikes, go back to what was before. So, with Uranus really being conjunct this particular full moon inside of Taurus, full moons heralding completions or endings, this really is a bit of an end of an era. We are headed into an end game of sorts before a new thing begins. And this transition period that this full moon is marking is supporting us to have a choice. We can stay in the illusion, we can ignore kind of where things are at. We can stay in the extremist conversations, far left, far right, all this, all that, all or nothing kind of thinking. Or we can start to go, okay, there's got to be a middle here. I can't be all right and they can't be all wrong. they can't be all right and I'm all wrong. Where is the middle ground? So this full moon is supporting us to get there. Um, it's like I said, a catalytic full moon. But for those who are initiated, as I imagine you are, if you're watching this channel, this is not necessarily an easy energy to sit in because there's a lot of, as I said, distortion and extremes in the collective. And it's up to you to utilize your extrasensory perceptions, to utilize your spiritual path, to do the transformative work inside to experience transformation outside. And that's the Uranus and Taurus opposite sun here in Scorpio. Scorpio talks about transformation and growth. Scorpio talks about letting go of what is dead so that what is new can arise, the resurrection process can begin. And the Uranian energy is catalyzing even more of that change. So, it's a bit auspicious that in the United States, this full moon happens as we wrap up a Mercury retrograde, and also happens as we land at an election day, a significant election day in a significant year. 2020 is a significant year. It's really kind of the year the blinders were meant to come off in terms of our perception and what we're seeing as we walk into a new decade for planet Earth. So, like I said, this is happening in a container where Neptune is squaring the nodes, creating some distortions as we begin these shifts and these changes. So, it's important to remember that what you see may not necessarily be the truth. It's also important to remember that if you are willing to transform, grow, and change, you can anchor truth. You can become the truth in your community, in your family, in your connections with friends and counterparts alike. That truth is definitely here. Certainly, with Uranus opposite the sun during the time of this full moon, it's an awakening moment. It was meant to be awakening so that we could really have a look and see, okay, what must be done here in order for change to really take effect? And who am I in the world of change and transformation that has the power to be a part of the change I want to see in the world? So it's a positive energy, but it doesn't come without all of the ingredients for change, waking up from illusions, clarifying distortion, feeling so uncomfortable that things, that there were changes pushed upon us, and then feeling so uncomfortable that we need to do something about it. All the ingredients for transformation soup are here. It's just a matter of what you're going to choose to do with them. So, change is not necessarily easy. It can take time depending upon your orientation to change. Some people have an orientation to change and transformation that is resistance. And so, every step hurts. Some people have an orientation to change that is full on embracing. And, they, with wild abandon, let go of what was to figure out how to work within what's new. Whatever it is for you, know that your life, our lives are changing, and you're not a victim in that change. In fact, you get to be an author and a co-conspirator of that change when you're willing to look at your own life, be accountable for what needs to change in your life, your community, your family, your friendships and relationships, and take a stand for that. You can be an agent of change with Uranus conjunct this full moon. Okay, so some of the other energies here that I want to make sure I touch upon are this Chiron opposite Venus during the time of this full moon. This brings in some of that bittersweet component. You know, Venus is in her home sign, one of her home signs, um, Libra, and she is the planetary ruler of this full moon because she also rules the sign of Taurus. And she's having a very important conversation here with Chiron. And with Venus opposite Chiron, there is an energy of really recognizing where our wounding is in our relationships, in our partnerships, especially because the partnership asteroid is conjunct the sun and opposite this particular full moon at this time. You may really be coming really privy to where you've been let down in some of your most significant partnerships and where you personally are being called to change in your most significant partnerships, where those partnerships must evolve and your part in the evolution is really blaringly loud, especially because during this full moon, we have so much energy sitting in the cardinal signs. The cardinal signs are signs Aries, Libra, and Capricorn, Cancer. And they herald in new beginnings. They herald in change and the initiation of change and transformation. They are the energy of taking on the initiative yourself. So, with the Chiron energy here, it's really talking about paying attention to that piece of the transformation soup that's saying, here's where my wounding is around love, around partnership. Here's where my wounding is around what I value, where my values haven't been met, where people haven't um, recognized or honored my values or been a representative of my values in government. And here's, given that wounding, here's what it is that this is the Aries piece of this, I, the self. Here's where it is that I need to take accountability for having something different happen because of where things are at in my external world. Here's how I need to be accountable for transformation in my inner world and partnerships going forward. So that's a very significant energy here. Like I said, all the ingredients are here. They're not comfortable ingredients for change, but they're here nonetheless. And typically, what it takes to make change is for us to get out of our comfort zones, and the universe has certainly pushed us in that direction at this time. We also, at this time, right before this full moon, had the energy here of Mercury retrograde conjunct our creation goddess in the sky and square Saturn conjunct Chariklo. So here is Saturn, Chariklo, and Pluto kind of all hanging out here. And we have a hard square, a 90-degree angle. And what this energy talks about is the consciousness, that's Mercury, of what we want to create, that's creation goddess, out of the I had a client yesterday refer to 2020 as a dumpster fire, out of the dumpster fire that 2020 has been. And this Pluto Saturn have been what's the wrecking ball that's catalyzed all of the 2020 change and or dumpster fire, if you will. Um, Saturn is demanding integrity in the arena of our institutions and structures of our lives. And where things are out of integrity, Saturn has taken a bat to those places of our life and crushed them. If you've been working a job that really wasn't in alignment with who you are, Saturn this year probably took you out of that job. The Plutonian energy, Pluto provided kind of a dustpan and a broom and said, oh, let me just sweep these pieces up. You don't need those back. You're moving towards something better. Something better may not be here yet, but it's coming. And that Mercury conjunct the creation goddess is starting to provide ideas for where you need to go and what you need to do and how you need to restructure things in order to get to that something new. Okay. Then we have Jupiter conjunct Pallas and Pluto in the back half of this particular square. So here's Pallas, that little yellow shape sigil down there. We've got Pluto and we've got Jupiter, the red sigil. This particular energy, Jupiter brings expansion, Pallas brings protection and like protective defense. She stands up for what she needs. And now that Jupiter's direct and moving into its final conjunction with Pluto this year, Lord of the Underworld, governor of the transformation cycle, death, afterlife, and rebirth. This particular energy is bringing forward the possibility that we can finally get the memo, get the lesson. Like I said, this is one of three, or it's three of three conjunctions of Pluto and Jupiter. The first one was back in the beginning of March. The second one was back at the end of July, or the end of June, beginning of July. And this final one with Jupiter and Pluto direct, if we had missed the memo before, we're going to get it now. Jupiter and Pluto will meet up, I believe it's on 11/11. And it's at that time where we will have real clarification of what is over, the era that is complete, and the fact that, yeah, it's time to move forward. So, if you've been holding on for dear life and things have just not been working out in a particular area, and those particular time frames have been where there's been a bit of a wildfire or a bit of a low blow, this final conjunction is going to be a moment where, the universe is really saying, hey, I need you to recognize this is where you need to change. This is where you need to grow. What it was cannot continue to be. It has to become something different. So, while for many of us that's been a very painful process, I want to just applaud you for making it this far in 2020. It's been a bit of a wild ride. A lot of our hearts have been broken and broken open. And I really just want to applaud and commend you for what it took to get through this and what it is you've had to do to survive this. This has not been easy to move through changes of this magnitude. And I really want to just say, kudos, spiritual warrior. Kudos. I see you. The next energy we have going on here is this Jupiter sextiling Neptune. And this has been one of the bright lights of 2020 because it does restore a bit of our faith, hope, and optimism that if we just work for it, something good can come out of this really challenging energy. The challenge with this energy, as I mentioned earlier, is the container of Neptune square the nodes, which can allow us to live in a bit of false hope, false belief, and distortions, especially with Jupiter square or sextiling that Neptune. We can kind of walk off into la la land and forget to think for ourselves about the changes that are occurring and allow, you know, get caught up in a lot of outer world rhetoric as the nodes sit in the signs of communication and politics and PR, and marketing, Gemini and Sagittarius. We can kind of let, what the story we're being sold run away with us. The truth is always somewhere in between. And so it's really important to be tuning into what you know to be true and what the truth is in your heart with this Jupiter sextile, the Neptunian energy. It's really important to remember that light always does come after dark. It's always important to remember where your faith lies and what your faith is in, that after every fall and winter, there is a spring, and that this is a season heralding the transformation that we need to do in order to create the spring of our dreams. So just remember that even though things can be a bit challenging at this time, um, there is light at the end of a tunnel. Tunnels don't last forever, and this is not a dead end tunnel. We just need to keep moving forward. Okay. So then we have an energy here. We talked about Neptune square the nodes. Um, did we talk about Mercury? Yeah, we talked about Mercury and creation goddess square the Pluto and Saturn conjunct Pluto. Great. So those are the major energies here. Um, you know, there is a seasonality to this, and I really just want to make sure that I say that in closing. Whatever season we're walking into next, it does have an end date. It does have a next season after that. And this kind of pull that we've got to change at this time, this pull that we have to growth at this time, and this kind of wake up call, because November 2020 with Jupiter conjunct Pluto on 11/11 will be a wake up call. This energy is giving us the opportunity to really see, okay, all right, so that's the way this inning went. The next inning is coming. That's a baseball reference for those of you who are not in the States. Let me find another one. Okay, that's the way this season went. The next season is on its way. But the next season really is in our hands. We do get to choose, we do get to act, we do get to transform and grow. How the next season goes is going to be a direct result of how we show up in this season of change. So I leave you with that to say, the change is upon us. The ingredients, the very uncomfortable ingredients are here, and you got this. We got this. Okay? Keep your head up, sunshines, and I'll see you on the next new moon video.